All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to tackle a massive paradox that trips up even the smartest people out there. Why, when it comes to money, does consistency almost always crush brilliance? We're going to explore why simple, repeated actions are the real secret to building wealth that lasts.
And this really is the big question, isn't it? We hear it all the time. Be patient, stay the course. But if it's really that simple, why is it so incredibly difficult to actually do it day after day, year after year?
I mean, let's be real. The rules for building wealth aren't some big secret. We know what we're supposed to do. Save regularly, invest for the long haul, and probably the most important one, don't freak out and sell everything when the market gets a little shaky. The knowledge itself, that's not the hard part.
And that right there, that's the real problem. The biggest thing standing in the way of financial success isn't a lack of information or a low IQ. It's a failure of behavior. It's that huge gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it, over and over and over again.
Okay, so if consistency is so important, why is it so hard? Well, a big part of the problem is that we get drawn to a much sexier idea, the illusion of brilliance. We think being smarter or faster will give us some kind of edge, but more often than not, it's a really dangerous trap.
And just look at the emotional difference here. Chasing intelligence feels amazing, right? You're learning new strategies, you're finding these hidden gems, you feel powerful. But consistency, it feels repetitive. It's the same routine, and honestly, it's kind of boring. Our brains are wired to crave the excitement of smarter, not the discipline of the same. It's a classic case of what they call action bias. That urge to do something feels way more productive than just patiently doing nothing.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract idea. The legendary investor Howard Marks tells this perfect story about it. A single conversation he had completely changed how he thought about what it really takes to win in the long run.
So he's talking to this guy, David Van Binschoten, who managed the pension fund for General Mills. And Van Binschoten tells him something that just sounds impossible. In any single year, his fund was never a star performer. It never even cracked the top quarter. He was just consistently a little bit above average.
But, and this is the incredible part, here's the payoff for all that boring consistency. By never being a top performer, he also made sure he was never a bottom performer. He just stayed in the game, delivering solid returns year after year. And because of that, his fund ended up in the top 4% of all funds over that entire 14-year period. His secret was so simple. He won by not losing.
So if the data is this clear, why do we keep chasing brilliance? Well, the answer isn't out there in the market, it's right here, inside our own heads. You could say our brains are basically wired with a financial bug. There's actually a whole field that studies this. It's called behavioral finance. And it basically throws out the old idea that we're these perfectly rational robots. Instead, it says, nope, we're emotional, we're biased, we're driven by things like overconfidence when times are good, and pure fear when they're not. And you know what? This is where really smart people can get into trouble. They try to outthink everything, always tweaking their strategy, which just makes them more vulnerable to these biases.
And what this all leads to is this huge, fundamental mismatch. Our brains evolved over thousands of years to want instant gratification, quick feedback. But building wealth? It's the complete opposite. You get delayed results, super slow feedback, and for years, the progress you're making is basically invisible. It makes consistency feel totally unnatural, even when it's working perfectly behind the scenes.
I love this quote from an investor on Reddit because it just nails it. That feeling of being smart, of thinking you've got it all figured out, that's usually our overconfidence bias talking. And that is the exact moment we're most likely to overtrade, overthink, and completely sabotage our own long-term goals.
So, how in the world do we fight back against our own flawed programming? Well, the answer isn't to just try harder or be smarter. The answer is to take our emotions out of the driver's seat entirely by building systems.
A perfect example of a simple but crazy powerful system is something called dollar-cost averaging. The idea is just so beautifully simple. You invest a fixed amount of money on a regular schedule, like every 2 weeks when you get paid, no matter what the market is doing. It's a purely mechanical process.
And a system like this works in 3 really powerful ways. First, you automate the action, so it just happens without you even thinking about it. Second, you remove the day-to-day decisions, because that's where fear and greed sneak in. And finally, and most importantly, it protects your consistency. It forces you to stay invested even when the news is terrifying and your gut is screaming at you to sell.
At the end of the day,
That's the whole point of a system. It's not some magic trick to beat the market. It's a shield. It's designed to protect you from your biggest financial enemy, yourself. It's basically a pre-commitment to being rational.
Okay, so let's get to the good part, the payoff. Because, let's be honest, for a really long time, consistency feels like you're going nowhere. It doesn't have the glamour of a big, flashy win. But over decades, this boring, repetitive action slowly transforms into a truly unstoppable force.
I love this timeline because it perfectly shows how our perception of the exact same action changes over time. In year 1, it feels totally pointless, like your contributions are a drop in the ocean. By year 10, you can finally see some steady progress. After 20 years, people look at you and call it discipline. And after 30 years, when compounding has really worked its magic, outsiders just look at you and say, you got lucky.
And this isn't just a hypothetical timeline. This is real life. An investor on Reddit shared their story of investing through what they call the lost decade, between 2000 and 2015, where the market basically went nowhere. For 15 years, their balance was pretty much flat. But they didn't quit. They kept investing. And since 2016, their portfolio's up 4 times. That's the explosive, nonlinear power of just staying put.
And that, right there, is the whole game. The magic of compounding, the engine of all wealth creation. It doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care if you can time the market. It only rewards one thing: time. It rewards consistency. It rewards staying put.
So if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. The path to financial success is way simpler than we make it out to be. You don't need to be smarter. You don't need secret knowledge. You absolutely do not need perfect timing. You just need to not quit. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. That small, boring, automatic investment you make next week, it's not going to feel heroic. It won't make for a good story at a party. But that one simple action, when you repeat it over decades, is what builds truly unstoppable momentum.
So that naturally leads to the next question, right? If we all agree that consistency is the engine, then what are the actual, specific, repeatable habits that fuel that engine and really build wealth over the long haul?
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into in our next explainer, the daily habits that quietly build wealth. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you then.